Welcome to this episode of One More Round. Now, I have a larger-than-life character on today's show. We have Don Polley all the way from the US, so across the pond. We're going to go stateside and speak with Don very shortly. Now, Don is a man of many talents. I often find that people like Don and myself, we have many hats, but I always remind people, Don, that we have the same head. And so I think that's really important that when we do have diversity in business, because I think it's really important to keep that energy and that motivation going, that we remind people it's the same head but many hats. And so today we have Don Polley. Now, Don is an education consultant. He's an author and a speaker and a millennial advocate. Don, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mark. How about yourself?
Good. I think it was my father-in-law who used to say to me, he was better than being twins, he said.
Well, Mark Twain once said, Samuel Clemens, he said, if you never tell a lie, you don't have to remember anything. As an entrepreneur, I mean, that's a byline for us because we meet a lot of people and we can't remember everybody. I don't know about you. I'm good with faces, but terrible with names. Not as good as I used to be. So I try to be mindful of that so that my message stays consistent.
Beautiful. So you're good with faces, but not so good with names. Is that what you said, Don?
For the most part, not as well as I used to be. Well, but I meet a lot of people, Mark. I really do. I mean, I'm talking to you, and you're in UK. So I think that's outstanding. I'm almost overwhelmed by that. But it's the age in which we live in. It's modern technology. Gives us an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the world is definitely getting smaller, and it's amazing how people like me and you can connect, and then how we build a nice rapport. And, we're in the community of entrepreneurship, which can be like lonely, and a challenge when you're creating and you are the answer to all the things that you're trying to put out in the world. So Don, beyond the abilities of networking, because you're clearly a serial networker and connector, who is Don Polley? Like, if you were to summarize you in one word, what would that be, Don?
Servant leader.
And what does it mean to be a servant leader?
Well, when I was in business, I've been in a variety of different business capacities, and I was a plant manager for about 5 years. And I use servant leadership, which is empathy, honesty, and humility. And by empathy, you try to understand the people that you work with. With honesty, you want to be very genuine with the people that you work with because they pick up on that and they resonate with that. And by humility, I mean, if I made a mistake, I would own it. That way, you don't have to worry about getting involved with the blame game. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want my subordinates to try to throw somebody else under the bus because we all make mistakes. And if we're not making mistakes, then we're not moving in the right direction because we want to be innovative and we want to try new things. And if you try a lot of things, you keep what works, but that doesn't inhibit you from not trying to do other things. Mm-hmm. And by so doing, I developed a fantastic team, very diverse, and we had mutual respect for each other. So it was one of the pinnacles in my achievement in the past.
Absolutely. Now, Don, I always think that environment is really important in order to really blossom as a human being. What would be the best environment for you to really come into your own?
Doing what I'm doing right here this morning, helping other entrepreneurs apply their craft, because young people today, Mark, I don't think they realize the tremendous amount of opportunity that's available to them. I mean, in my case, I came from a different generation. I'm from the generation that we didn't have Google. I mean, we couldn't go on YouTube and how to. We had to do it ourselves. So I call myself a lifelong learner. But in addition to that, I was also an experiential learner. So I was always willing to try new things. And if I seen someone that was doing something better than I was, and we were in a similar type situation, then I would watch what they were doing. And then I would go over and talk to them. And most of the time, they would mentor me in regards to what they were doing a little different than what I was. Because, that's what you have to do. if you're going to increase, if you're going to move forward, then you have to be able to compete with others. I've applied the same thing in education. I mean, I've actually got 3 degrees, but I don't have a master's degree. So, you know, whenever I went and got my bachelor's degree, whenever I walked onto the campus, I've seen all these young people. I mean, I went to Union University, which is not far from here, nationally acclaimed, and all the young people had smartphones. And I'm walking around with a flip phone in my pocket, and I'm thinking, wow, I don't know if I made the right move here. You know what I mean? So as I went through the process, Mark, I realized that all of a sudden in a short span of time, instead of me watching what they were doing, their heads were on a swivel watching me because they couldn't understand how I was making such good grades. I didn't have the smartphone. I didn't have the tablet. I didn't have the technology. And what I explained to them is I had learned how to learn. Hence the millennial advocate part of it. When I'm talking to young people, I never have to explain that. But when I'm talking to people that have a little snow on the pumpkin like myself, well, just exactly what is a millennial advocate? It's a student advocate. And, you know, whenever you're working with students, when you see that light bulb go off, you mentor entrepreneurs. And whenever you have a session with them or you're talking to a group and you see the eyes light up, they're getting your message. I mean, you're getting your point across. And you know as well as I do, you're not going to resonate with everyone. But a win is a win. So if you can get so many out of the group that got it, then that's fantastic. I mean, that's why we do what we do. That's the driver that motivates us to move forward.
Absolutely.
That's our reason for getting up in the morning.
It's true. As a human being, Don, what do you believe is your greatest habit? What is one thing that you are kind of proud of and have seen the results in your own daily life that have really given you a good foundation to build everything you have on?
My faith. I mean, I get up each morning and I get into the Word of God. I mean, you know, I have my devotional time, my time of prayer, and I make the main thing the main thing. That way, if I've got a problem before I start my day, I take it up with the man in the mirror because I work for myself. And if I'm going to have an issue or a problem, let's get that out of the way, put the Lord first, walk out the door. That way, we're going to have a good day. See, disappointment is inevitable, Mark. It's going to happen. But discouragement is a choice that we make. And if you choose to be discouraged from the time you step outside your door, you're not going to have a good day. I don't care what you do because it's hard to turn that around.
It's true.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'm talking to you and you're in England. I think that's just fantastic. I really couldn't put it into words. I mean, you know, I've always wanted to meet you. I reviewed your book for the Jackson Business Journal, and I've always wanted to meet you. And as it turns out, I'm working with another author that I reviewed for the Jackson Business Journal, and it's Dr. Caressa Morrill. She, too, is an education consultant, and her book is titled Ring the Bell. Literacy is Everyone's Problem. So I got her book for the same reason that I got yours. The title rang the bell for me. Plot twist. I said, I must learn more about this. And once I got that and I read it, it was very fulfilling for me. I mean, it was refreshing. I gained by doing that. Same thing applies to her book. I mean, it was a very short book, but it was clear, concise, and to the point. And now that I've met you, I mean, that gives more meaning to the book.
Yes.
And that with my book, I hope that people, if they meet me on social media, then that adds a little clarity to what I'm trying to get across in my message. Because in my mind, Mark, it's not about the messenger, it's about the message.
Very true.
So, you know, and that's what's important.
This idea is really to encourage you, but it's really based on the fact that progress isn't always visible. I mean, if you take when a lady is pregnant, sometimes you don't even see a change in her physical body until some 4 or 5 months later. And what I'm wanting to encourage you with is there's things in our lives that where we may look at it and critique our own progress with our own eyes, You know, that actually sometimes the things that we're going through are actually going on behind the scenes. And at what point do you arrive at that idea of revelation or new beginning? It may not even have visible signs of development and growth. So my encouragement to you is keep being faithful with what you have, keep taking the lessons, because progress isn't always visible.
Now, as you know, the show's called One More Round, and we're in the third series. Obviously, you have watched the show as well, so you probably have a little bit of a heads up. But when you hear the word "one more round," what does it kind of spark in your mind?
Well, it's we've been talking about plot twist. It's another plot twist for me. See, I subtitled my book "Gaining Value at Every Career Stage," and as an entrepreneur, you understand we go through levels. I mean, when you initially start out, you're very optimistic. You feel like you're going to set the world on fire. You've got all these wonderful ideas. You've got a wealth of experience that you can take with you. And then whenever you go out there, nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear about it. I mean, you might as well be selling blocks of ice. Now, back in the 20s, that was a hot item. But, you know, in the 21st century, not so much. So you have to figure out how to craft your message in such a way to resonate with your target audience. So with One More Round, it's been a learning curve for me because I was not as technologically adept as I would like to be, but I'm willing to learn, and I've learned how to learn. So it's just a matter of getting with people that know more about what's going on. But for me, it's a continual learning experience. So each day for me is one more round. So, you know, and if it's a gain, it's a good day. If it's not, then I try to learn from that. I mean, I win either way. If I have a bad day, then I'm going to learn something from that. But if I have a good day, that was a win. So I'm going to try to figure out, you know, what I did that day and why it was such a great day. And you build off of that. So, you know, you have to go one more round, but you don't get knocked down and not get back up. Because as an entrepreneur, I think you'd agree, failure's not in our vocabulary.
It's true. It's interesting. I mean, it is interesting, Don, because you obviously have shared that one more round is something that you do, you know, every day. So rather than some real big event that happens which knocks you, you're saying that, you know, every day is one more round because you have choices to make and you have to respond to, you know, what life throws at you. Could you maybe share a specific, probably more prominent kind of story in your life where life really hit you in the chops, and then how you popped out of that?
Well, I graduated from Union University in 2013, and in my mind, I thought with my background, my experience, and now I've got the education to validate what I've got going on. I've got my paperwork, you understand, that I would just step off the stage and go to work, find myself for lack of a better term, a retirement job that I could get my nest egg fixed up and everything would be everything. But what I found out was I was continuously employed from 1974 through 2011, not in the same job like many people in my generation. But, you know, I learned how to adapt. I was resilient. But one thing that I realized very quickly was the fact that I didn't know how to find a job. I've never had to. And, you know, the job market wasn't like you could go buy a newspaper and go down through the one ads. It wasn't like that anymore. And no, but my phone wasn't ringing because I was in school. And anyone that had asked me during the process, I said, I'll get back with you whenever I get out of school. Well, that was then, this is now. So now I had to figure out how to play the game, one more round, if you will. So I went through this process, and the only place that I could find a job over the next couple of years was in a car lot. And I didn't go to school, and I didn't do everything that I've accomplished over the years to be a car salesman. I mean, it's a good living. There's nothing wrong with it, but, you know, that wasn't me. And I didn't want it to be defined by that. So my one more round was having the confidence in myself to reflect back and look at everything that I've achieved and accomplished and have the wherewithal to be able to start my own business. I started Don Polley and Associates. I put my name out front, and then I got on all you have to do is Google Don Polley. You can find out whatever you want to know about me. But, you know, that way I owned who I was, what I was going to do, and that gave me the confidence to move forward so that I could deal with one more round every day. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, Mark, it's kind of like jumping off of a high dive cliff with a kit in your backpack to build a glider, but you don't have any instructions and you've got to do something before you hit the rocks down below. I mean, once you take that leap, you know that you can accomplish, you have everything you need to accomplish what you want to do. It's just a matter of getting it done.
Very true.
So I hope that answers your question as far as, it's still a work in process. I mean, I have one more round every day.
Yeah. And outside of your faith then, Don, because obviously is a clear part of how you deal with when life hits you around the face. Could you maybe share just quickly a couple of other things that you may do when life really throws you a curveball? Is there a couple of things that you practically do?
I try to get out and I work with other people to help them to succeed, because that reminds me of where I came from. And that encourages me to aspire, because if you're a leader, you've got to lead by example. And another thing, leaders are readers, Mark. So, you know, if you're in that spot to where you're struggling a little bit, grab a book, get your book, Plot Twist, go over it and look at it. You know, get my book. I'm not an anachronism. An anachronism is someone that's born in the wrong time in the wrong place. I encourage young people all the time. I talk to student groups, students, and they need to understand the opportunity that exists for them. When I graduated high school, Mark, I never dreamed that I would be able to talk to you in Dyersburg, Tennessee, and see your face. You see what I'm saying? We could have a conversation. I never dreamed that I'd be able to. I never dreamed that I'd be able to walk around with a supercomputer in my pocket, but I have one. It's not a flip phone, it's a supercomputer. And believe it or not, for the most part, for practical purposes and concerns, I know how to use it. So you sent the link this morning so that we could hook up. And, you know, young people need to realize that, you know, they live in this day, they live in this time. So it's a wonderful time for them. But you have a lot of people that wring their hands and they're defeated because they don't have everything that they need. And where I gain my strength, where I gain my encouragement, is I just get with them and look them in the eyes. Sometimes I have to use radical candor. But I said, go get it. Believe in yourself. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself, how are you ever going to convince anybody else who you are and what you can do for them? I mean, when I'm talking to young kids groups, over here we call it WIIFM. What's in it for me? And I said, whenever you're interviewing for a company, that's what station you're playing in your mind. But I said, they're doing the same thing. They're listening to you. They're asking you questions and paying attention to what you say. But in their mind, they're thinking, what's in it for me? If we give this individual a job, it really doesn't matter what your gender is. If you got purple hair, that's fine. If you've got tattoos, is that going to be a plus or a minus for what we do? Doesn't matter. I mean, if you're going to be a geek, if you will, and you're going to be in a cubicle or in a room with other people, you know, that are working on computers, it doesn't matter if you have purple hair. It doesn't matter if you have tattoos. They give you a job to do, and that's what you do.
Very true. So in terms of your book then, because you've got it there with you, haven't you?
Yes.
Can we see that, Don? Did you
Absolutely.
Did you write this book for millennials, or did you write it for a specific group of people?
Well, to be honest with you, Mark, when I graduated in 2013, now I'd already explained to you in my mind, I thought I was going to be on top of the world and I'd be in demand. As it turns out, they weren't really hiring. So I heard a lot, everybody's got a bachelor's degree. First time I heard that, I was like, really? And I said, well, I graduated with honors. And they said, everybody graduates with honors. Well, at this point, I'm thinking, wait a minute now, you know, I thought that was a pretty big deal. But now that I've, you know, hindsight's 2020, now that I see it from today, where it was at then, they had a point. So I thought, I've got to do something besides the fact of my background, my experience, and my education, and doing well at that. I've succeeded all at all points in the past, I've got to do something today that defines me, that separates me from everybody else. So I wrote a book. And I've never had a hiring manager tell me everybody's an author. I've never had a president of the company tell me everybody's an author. I've never spoke with a CEO that's told me, Don, everybody's an author. Mark, I keep waiting for that to happen because I've got a standard answer and waiting. What have you written? You know what I mean? But nobody asked me. Nobody asked me. So, you know, and that's why I titled it, I'm Not an Anachronism. I went to Jackson, Tennessee. They've got several campuses there with students, junior colleges. They've got private schools. I graduated from Union. They've got University of Memphis, Lambeth. And I went on the campuses and I asked the students what they thought about the title. And they kind of wrinkled their brow a little bit and they said, well, what's an anachronism? And I said, well, I'm asking you what you want about, you know, how do you like the title? And they said they liked it. And I said, why do you like it? They said, because I've got to Google what anachronism means. So I said, well, you mind doing that? And they would, and they read it. And I said, would that encourage or inspire you to read the book? And they said that would be a step in the right direction because, you know, now that I know what it means, I like that. So, you know, that's why I titled it that. I mean, it was them, not me. Now, it does apply to what's in the book because it's about me. It's nonfiction. It's biographical, 1974, 2011, continuously employed. You know, some of the challenges that I've overcome. But it was the students that inspired me for the title. So, you know, and that's what I'm all about, is encouraging others, raising the bar. That's what drives me. That's why I do what I do. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Lovely, Don.
I hope that answers your question. I'm really not trying to run around, but
no, that's good. I mean, you just touched on the fact that you're all about encouragement, you know, and obviously you're a millennial advocate, you're an education consultant, you're a speaker, you're an author. So encouragement probably comes through all those streams of different expression that you found. As somebody who encourages, Don, because I think the world needs encouragement and we need it as entrepreneurs, you maybe share two ways in which you think the world could encourage each other a little better?
Volunteer. You know, I talked about empathy earlier.
Yeah.
Volunteer. I mean, go and serve meals at a soup kitchen. Volunteer for the United Way. They get involved in a lot of different things that are going on in the community. Go to a church, you know, volunteer through some of the things that they've got going on. Volunteer through the schools. See, I'm a reading coach with a Rise to Read in one of the schools in the county where I live at. And I get to work for 30 minutes with a student, second grader. And they think it's just wonderful that I'm an author taking time out of my day to help them learn how to read and comprehend what they've read. Mark, that's why I get out of bed in the morning. I mean, they need to learn then, because kindergarten through third grade is whenever you learn how to read. From fourth grade on, you read to learn. And we're in the age of lifelong learning. I mean, that's where we're at.
Absolutely.
So, you know, I'm also on the board of the Imagination Library, so I'm all about literacy. But, you know, that's foundational to anything that we're going to do. If you're going to achieve success in life, you have to read to succeed, and you have to be a lifelong learner. I mean, you've got to be resilient. That's the bottom line right there. And in order to be resilient, you've got to figure out why. I mean, you know, you got to have that why. Why do you need to be resilient? Because if not, then you're going to be flipping burgers. I don't know if you guys have got McDonald's over there.
Oh, we do. It's everywhere.
Yeah, but, you know, and that's not what you want to do. It's like when I went to Union University when I graduated. I mean, I didn't want to be a car salesman. Nothing wrong with it. I actually made money at it. But, you know, it's just a matter of that was not me. That's not who I was. So today I get to do what I want to do, and I hopefully uplift, encourage, inspire others to be able to be all they can be without being too cliche right there.
Yeah.
So if I can inspire some people in UK,
yeah,
it's been a great day for me.
Yeah. So volunteers one, then Don, what would be the second way to encourage?
The second way to encourage is speak to people about who they are. See, young people today don't get enough inspiration. They listen to podcasts. They're looking at different things on their phone. But what they're in essence doing is they're patronizing themselves.
Mhm.
So what they need to do is have someone come across and have a conversation with them. And if you talk to them about their career objectives or you talk to them about their educational aspirations, it's almost like talking to a grandparent about their grandchildren.
Sure.
I mean, once you get their attention and they realize that you're listening and you actively listen to them and you care, they'll have a conversation with you. I mean, they'll talk to you for 30 or 40 minutes. You have to literally excuse yourself from Starbucks and say, look, I've got an appointment.
Mhm.
And I talk to people all the time from my generation said they can't communicate with kids.
Mhm.
They're not trying.
Mhm.
You've got to meet them where they are.
Yeah,
And in order to be an encourager and be effective, you've got to meet people where they are.
absolutely. Don, it's been great to have you on this episode of One More Round. How do people find out more about you? How do they connect?
They can connect with me. They can go to my website, don@donpolley.com. You can just Google Don Polley. I guess that would work in the UK as well. It's Polley. And I'm all over the internet. Just pick whatever link you like. I mean, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We instant message, on Facebook. And like I said, I've got my website. I've got the book. I'm working on my second book. So, it's I'm out there. So, by all means, get in touch with me. Buy my book. You can find it on Amazon.com. If you don't want to do that, go to my website. There's a link there that you can buy my book through my website. I would appreciate it very much if you would. If you buy it, give me a review. Say good things about it. If you go to my website or if you go to my Facebook page, I've got a company page on Facebook, and I put all kinds of articles out there that are of benefit to young people, students, early career, entrepreneurs. I mean, that's what it's there for, and it's free. I mean, you can go look, but if you check my blog posts out or anything like that, make sure you follow the links because that's where I get my information. I'm not just out there rattling off things. I mean, I verify it before I do.
Very good, Don. It's been great to have you on the show today.
Okay. Mark, perhaps one day we can meet face to face. You never know.
I think we should.
One day at a time.
I think we should, Don. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely.